Hello there, Cojos Revenge posed 25 wrestling-related questions on Livejournal, and I thought I'd be different and make a video answering them instead. I'll put the link up in the right-hand corner. You can check them out. I also recommend if you have a Livejournal that you add WWE to your friends list. There are some really cool people there. They have embraced me, and I have nothing but good things to say about them. I'll try to keep my answers as short as possible, but I suspect I'm going to go over 10 minutes with this, so I'll have to split it up into multiple parts, but we'll see. Question number 1, what do you ultimately think Vince McMahon will most be remembered for as a promoter? I think he'll be remembered for good and bad things, and then some things that may be good or bad depending on what your view is. One of those is when he went around to the various territories and kind of cherry-picked wrestlers that he wanted for the WWF. Some people will view that in the negative because you're taking away money-making people from these territories. But you can view it in the positive as well because you're kind of elevating those people into a bigger audience. They're no longer working for these little, basically mom-and-pop organizations. They're working for a really big company making really good money, and they're getting exposed to hundreds of thousands of people, and that is a good thing. They're actually making a name for themselves. I also think he'll be remembered for taking his company when it was probably at its lowest, and another rival company was doing infinitely better than them, and turning his company around and pretty much becoming a phoenix rising from the ashes of his former company. I'm obviously talking about the Monday Night Wars and the Attitude Era. And on the negative side of things, I think he will be looked at as kind of trying to be more than he is. It seems like he wants to legitimize pro wrestling and make it seem like it's more than it is. Unfortunately, wrestling is never going to get any recognition other than being for kids. That's a simple fact of life. As big as the WWE is, and as much money as they make, at the end of the day, certain people are going to still see it as kid stuff. I liken wrestling to comic books. There's a lot of good stuff out there to read if people will just give it the chance. There's a lot of really good wrestling out there if people will give it the chance. The problem is convincing people to give it that chance. And I could go off on a whole tangent here, but I'll rein myself in and move on. Question number 2, what do you think is the most important positive change that has come from the WWE vision of what pro wrestling is? Well, I kind of answered this in the first question. I think they've given really impressive wrestlers a stage to make or break themselves. It's a real proving ground. It's like Broadway. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. I also think that they've introduced people to wrestling that may not have been as into it if it were still, the little mom and pop places. I think WWE has helped bring wrestling to places where wrestling probably didn't even exist or have a chance to shine. I mean, if I lived in a semi-little town in USA or even abroad, I would be excited that the WWE was coming to my town or coming somewhere close. I would go out of my way to watch it. Question number 3 is, what do you think is the most important negative change that has come from the WWE's vision of what pro wrestling is? I would probably say their vision of what a pro wrestler should be is kind of askewed. It should be 6'5" and he should be totally muscular, and I don't believe that for a second. I think anybody can be a good wrestler regardless of height, weight, or size. Look at Rey Mysterio. He's 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing, and he is a really great wrestler. I mean, people are excited to see him. Look at Mick Foley from the 90s. He is beloved right now because of the stuff that he did back then. He busted his ass, and he is about as far from the WWE vision of what a wrestler should be as you can get. Look at Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader. They were really big guys, but they could go in the ring because they had the talent. I think judging a wrestler by the way they look is the ultimate form of discrimination. Question number 4, what is something that you have always felt the WWE does well that they don't get enough credit for? This is a hard question because I have more criticisms than I have credits. I'd probably say, going back to what I said before, giving wrestlers that probably wouldn't have had a name a viable stage to show their talents on. Question number 5 is, what is something you have always felt WWE does horribly that they don't get enough criticism for? Well, I've got a big laundry list of complaints. I won't list them all here for your benefit, because I'm sure you don't want to listen to me nag. My top complaint is that they rely too heavily on a small group of talent in their main event picture. There's probably about a dozen guys, if that are spread across 3 shows to defend 3 belts, and that really needs to change. I mean, what happens when John Cena and Triple H get injured and you've got nobody else to fall back on to face Randy Orton? I will say that SmackDown is doing a better job of bringing up some mid-card talent into the main event, but Raw's got a long way to go, and the problem is that they start pushing people, they get nervous or something happens, and then they stop. They don't push them anymore. They end the feuds. It's not the way to go. And it's just proof of poor booking. I'd also say that the WWE has way too many pay-per-views. They've got over 12. I think they've got 14 a year. That's a pay-per-view every 3 weeks. That's too many. And it doesn't help that like the pay-per-views are like $30. WrestleMania is like $50. It's outrageous. They need to cut back on their pay-per-views, or they need to lower their prices. They need to work with the market. People are out of jobs. They're not going to be ordering a pay-per-view every month. And since you also have to contend with UFC, you're losing out on the market there as well, because they might choose UFC over your WWE pay-per-view that month. So they either need to lower their prices or cut the number of pay-per-views they have in a year. Unfortunately, I don't see either of those things happening. Question number 6. Overall, do you think most people are fair when discussing WWE? Or do you think people tend to be blinded either by fanboyism or hatred? You know, honestly, I think people tend to be blinded by what they don't like in the WWE. You know, granted, I have my favorites, and people are going to like what they like. And if you don't like it, you're very entitled to criticize it. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of stuff in WWE that I am very critical about. I don't hate the WWE because of it. I don't refuse to watch the WWE because of it. I'm going to watch Raw in the hopes that it improves. How am I going to know that it's improved unless I watch it? What I don't get is how some people can blindly hate a wrestler for no good reason. I mean, there are no wrestlers in the WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, or any of the other companies that I hate. I don't know these people personally to hate them. There are people on the shows that I question why they're on the show. There are people that I don't think are that talented, that deserve the spot they're in, but I don't hate them. You know, I don't go on YouTube and blindly rage that they're getting a title shot or they have the belt and they don't deserve it. You know, they're probably in that spot for a reason. Whether it's good or bad is subjective. I mean, that depends on who you are. So yeah, I think people tend to be blinded, probably myself included. Question number 7. What match would you point to as the match that most defines the WWE version of wrestling? I would probably say anything with the Boogeyman, Hornswoggle, or Eugene. No, I'm kidding. I would probably say John Cena, Triple H. I mean, those guys are always in the main event, and they're the ones that get pushed the most. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's what I feel the WWE sees as wrestling.